Newsfirst, Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali. And a very good evening to you and welcome to Newsline Zoom. Our guest today is Rohana Hettiarachchi, who's Executive Director at PAFRO. Very good evening to you, sir.
Good evening.
Mr. Hettiarachchi, could you tell me what exactly does PAFRO do?
Well, generally, PAFRO is doing elections observations. Basically, that is our main duty during elections. But in addition, we are engaging with electoral reforms. We are engaging with clean politics because the political culture in this country. So we are very hardly working on that. But in these elections, beyond all these works. Now we have to give the priority to bring the elections here, because to observe the elections, we have to have elections. Yeah. But unfortunately, in Sri Lanka now, the elections calendar is look like it's going to be vanished in Sri Lankan election system. So we are very hardly working to get the local elections for next. I mean. Actually, it has to take place by 9th March, but at least within next couple of months period, we are trying our level best to get it for the people of this country.
And Mr. Hettiarachchi, what are the legal repercussions of not holding elections? For example, can they postpone these elections forever? And what recourse do the people have?
No, there is no legal provisions for postpone the elections. As I think you all can remember, in the past, most of the occasions, the election has postponed. The local election postponed for 1 year period. And sometime we can remember that we had staggered elections. We had early elections. But every elections we had, it was with the given legal framework. So minister do have authority to postpone the election for 1 year. And they did have authority or do have authority to early elections. But this is the first time we are postponing the elections without having any legal framework. So there is no legality on this postponement of elections, but the Elections Commission do have right to postpone due to unexpected reasons. But there is no such reasons at the moment. But this is completely out of the legal framework. The head of the state is trying to postpone without having proper reasons, but they are coming up with these economic reasons always. But we know that that's not the real case. There is no political will. So this postponement is really illegal. The president. In constitutionally, he need to support the elections commissions, and all the government officials need to support the elections commissions. And elections commission is duty bound to have elections before 19th of March. But unfortunately, the politicians are playing with this, especially the president of this country.
And so, what recourse would the people have in the face of this lack of political will on the part of the president?
Well, people doesn't have any options at the moment. I mean, we can look at it in two sides. The people people may not get anything out of these elections in generally, because the economic people are struggling with the economic crisis. So, and they are trying to get their day-to-day needs. So people may not really interesting on this election sometime, some people. But this is the scheduled elections during this March. So if the problem here is why the people need to serious about these elections, and they need to work together for to get these elections. That is just because of, if we allow, this may be not, as I mentioned, this may be not big effect for the voters' day-to-day life, but if we allow government to postpone these elections, without having any legal framework, and considering this economic crisis, in the future, for us, there will not be any sort of elections during next 2 years period. Even the president can come up with the same reasons for parliamentary elections and same reason for presidential elections. Even whoever coming as a leader in the future, they can rob the country, and then they can say, look, the economy is not stable, the economy is not good for elections, so we will take 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. So this is the bad proceeding. So that is why the citizens of this country, even it is effective for their day-to-day life in these local elections or not, people has to get together and they have to fight for their rights. I think there are some groups, the young groups, they all trying to push the government, push the politicians, get these elections many different ways. Some of them are trying to collect the money. Some of them are trying to go to the court. Some people, some groups are coming to the road. So the many different ways now they are pressuring the government. But unfortunately, they can't hear it. I think the head of the state is not properly listening to the people. So that is the biggest issue here.
And what is the current status? What's happening to the fundamental rights case of the retired serviceman? I think went to court.
Yeah, there are 3 cases. Actually, the 2 cases are pending now. One is, as you said, this army officer filed the case asking to postpone the elections.
Yeah.
We had a one hearing day before yesterday, and the court has postponed it.
Yeah.
For 11th May, unfortunately or fortunately, because the election is due on March 9th, but the case has postponed to May 11th. The other one is I think SJB candidate for Colombo municipality also filed fundamental case. It has not heard yet. In additionally, I think you all can remember that election commission had undertaken one of the case that they are proceeding with the elections. I think with Mr. Professor Firis, and there are 2 other politicians filed the case, and they withdrew because election commission has given undertaken. But now they are coming and saying they are unable to proceed the elections because of the financial issue and lack of support from the government officials, the government printer and the finance ministry and the police. So generally during elections period, all the government officials will support the elections commissions. That is the practice, and that's constitutionally they are duty bound to support the elections commissions. But in these situations, they are not supporting. So they are coming and they submit their motions to the court that they are unable to proceed because of this financial and the other issues.
And in your opinion, Mr. Hettiarachchi, as the executive director of PAFREL, has the Elections Commission been independent? Should they have done anything differently?
Well, this commission was appointed under the 20th Amendment, right? Not the Constitution Council. We know that during the last couple of months, we were pushing them to call early elections because they were duty bound to have call elections from September onwards. But unfortunately, they took a long time frame. But they finally start on January 4th. In between, one of the commission member resigned, and there were a couple of death threat to the elections commissions. So that it's kind of little mixed feeling. Whether I'm not saying the 5 members, but there are some mixed feeling. There are some doubt about some of these commission members, whether they are genuinely or whether they are independently supporting the election process. there were little doubt, but we know the last 1 month period after they call the elections, I think they try their level best. So that is my understanding, to have elections with this all the difficulties, because I think this is the first time I have experienced almost 25 years in this election sector in Sri Lanka. This is the first time we are facing such a challenging situations, and this challenge is coming from the rulers, not the other technical challenges. So with all that, I think they were trying their level best, but I can't guarantee the all members, but there are some members we know that they are genuinely trying to have elections as their duty.
And Mr. Hettiarachchi, why is it so important to hold local government elections? Isn't it more important to have the parliamentary elections or the general elections?
Well, as the elections observer Paras, now we are working with the constitutions and the elections act. So according to the constitutions and the election schedule, now the local election is the one which take place during this period. Parliamentary, we do have two more years. Presidential, we do have 2 more years. So we are standing with the local elections just because that's a constitutionally and also referring the elections, local elections act. This is the due elections. So people may think that the better election is the parliamentary elections, or maybe some politicians may think that the presidential election may be much better. But in our principal stand is, this is the due elections. So that is why we are standing with the local elections. But my point is, Paras, as I wanted to highlight it again, if we allow any government to postpone elections, even it's a local, I mean, there is no major elections, or you know, you can't give a different weight for elections.
Mr. Hettiarachchi, what you're saying is that there are no such things as major elections and minor elections. Elections are elections and they must be held.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. All elections will allow peoples to select their representative, right? It can be a different level, parliamentary or a presidential, or maybe local or provincials. So all elections are equal. And also for us, I wanted to highlight here, if we are not going for local elections at this time, from March 20th onwards, we will not have a local councillors. Then the government official will run the local authority. Then there is no provincial system here now. It vanished for almost 5 years now. And the parliament also now under the president custody, you know, he can dissolve the parliament at any given time. Right. So it's look like one person can handle the entire machinery. So that is also need to have a serious thought on these things, especially the political party leaders, to press the government, to pressurize the presidents to have these elections. So that is why this is, on the other angle, this is why it's important.
So what you're saying is, if they don't have these elections, then after that date in March, there won't be, all these councils will stand dissolved, and therefore Sri Lanka is like being ruled as a kingdom with a king, and exactly. The king does everything.
Exactly, yeah. It looked like no other political authority. No, there's no other political representative for the people. Only one leader. He's also elected by the parliament. But that's a different scenario, because we can't challenge that, because it's constitutionally he elected as a president. So we are not having any argument on that. But the problem here is, after March 20th, there is no representative, all these 2 tiers, and the parliament also under his custody, because he can dissolve the parliament at any given time.
So is the real question really is Sri Lanka on its way to becoming the royal kingdom of Sri Lanka, as opposed to the Democratic Socialist Republic of Sri Lanka? We'll find out with a few more questions to Rohana Hettiarachchi, the Executive Director of PAFRO, soon after this break, in which we take a peek at the headlines from that wonderful Newsfirst primetime news team. We'll see you on the other side of the break. Newsfirst Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali.
TV1 TV for life.
Jatika Janabalawega activist who was hospitalized following Sunday's protest dies in hospital. Another protester is in critical condition. President's political decisions are not the decisions of the SLPP, says Ranjit Bandara. Wasantha Mudalige and 61 others released on bail. Mayantha says he has decided to step down from the post of Committee of Public Finance Chairman. World Bank's IFC to provide Sri Lanka with $400 million cross-currency swap facility to help fund essential imports.
TV1 TV for life.
ව්‍යාපාරික ලොව නව ප්‍රවණතා නව නිෂ්පාදන නව දැනුම නව අවස්ථා ඔබට ගෙනෙන ව්‍යාපාරික තොරතුරු අවකාශය කෝපරේට් බ්‍රීෆ් බ්‍රහස්පතින්දා රාත්‍රී 7:30ට.
Newsfirst Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali. Welcome back to Newsline Zoom. My guest this evening is Mr. Rohana Hettiarachchi, who's the Executive Director of PAFRO, the people who keep looking to see if we're having elections and if they're done properly. So Mr. Hettiarachchi, now Sri Lanka, if we don't have these elections, might end up as a kingdom and not as a democratic socialist republic. And in between all this, I want to ask you, this claim made by President Wickremesinghe and his team, saying that they don't have the money to hold elections. Is that claim valid? Does it matter when it comes to holding elections?
No, it's not valid for me. I think it's not valid for the citizens of this country. We know that. I mean, we know that there is an economic crisis, but this is not the resources. This is just the priority of the government. We are asking for the Elections Commission asking is only 10 billion, right? It's a half-day expenses of the government budget. So government budget for 2023 is 7,000 billion. So we are asking half-day expenses. And I think the revenue is also going up these days. So this is not the big issue for the government if they really wanted to have elections. But we know the way the president behaved at the parliament, I think it's very clear. It's very clear the government doesn't have any will, any political will for elections. So finally he said it become a joke for him. I mean, it's really sad. The president of the head of the state not serious about the people's franchise. It's taken as a joke for him. And we realize the parliamentarians also just laugh. I'm really sad to see these stories in the parliament. And then the politicians are not serious enough for people's franchise. So it's very clear government doesn't have political will. Finance is not the main matter. We know that it's a matter, but we can resolve. Even people are ready to contribute the money. If the government is willing to take it, that also can consider, because a lot of people, every day I'm getting calls that asking whether they can contribute for elections. But there's no such a system to collect the money in case if the government doesn't accept, we will be in trouble. So if they really want...
So several points come to mind, but the first of all, of course, is that I'm glad that you also has detected this ability of our president to turn everything into a joke and hoping that it'll just go away. Well, I don't think that the people of Sri Lanka are willing to be treated so flippantly by a man who hasn't actually been directly appointed by the people, a man who lost his election, a man who has been shown to be rather strange in his behavior, naming people in parliament and then not backing it up with claims and so on and so forth. And I don't believe that the people of Sri Lanka will take it lying down. And the other thing, of course, is that if they wanted to raise the money, the president, like no one else really, knows exactly how to do it. Because if you remember, Mr. Hettiarachchi, back in February 2015, and Zulfikar Farzan might get the dates right for me, but in February 2015, when they wanted to raise 1 billion, they said only 1 billion, they managed to raise 10 billion just from one primary dealer alone. And that was, of course, what we now know as the Treasury bond scam. So they know how to raise the money when they want it. So the other question, of course, Mr. Hettiarachchi, is if we look at the people who are applying for nominations and so on, would you be aware what is the percentage of the women who have been applying to contest at the local government elections?
I think according to the Act, there is a minimum percentage. So the contesting, there is a 2 list in each and every local authorities when you submit your nominations. So one is the contesting list, is the vote-based list. You have to at least you have to include 10% of candidate should be women. And
right.
there is other list, we call it secondary list, that has to include minimum 50%. If not, the nomination will reject. So the last election in 2018, I can remember there were about 18,000 candidates across the country, because the same electoral system which we use in 2018 elections. I think this time too, somewhere around 18 to 20,000 candidates should be in the both lists, because we have realized there are 58 political parties and 300 independent groups are contesting these elections. I think this is the elections which is highest number of candidates are contesting in these local elections. That is 80,700, I mean nearly somewhere around nearly 81,000 candidates are contesting. So I think women's should be minimum 18 to 20,000.
Mm-hmm. And another one is, we've got questions here. What is happening in the social media sphere in regard to campaigning? What are the trends that you see?
I think most of the parties now, they have stopped their campaigning, because the Elections Commission has clearly stated that the election is not going to take place on 9th March. Probably they will announce the date by 3rd of March again, but that also can postpone, because without government support, the Election Commission can't proceed, and they can fight with the court, but there is no way to proceed without the government support. So most of the political parties, and I'm getting calls again from the candidate from the different part of the country, they have already stopped their campaigning, most of them. And some parties, I think, even before these situations, they were realized that election is not going to take place. Some of the parties, they didn't serious about their campaigning. They just submit their nominations and they were not proceed with their campaign. But some parties still they are continuing their campaigning in the big way. But candidate in the ward level, I think now they have almost all of them have stopped their campaigning.
And what is the particular case of people who resigned or taken leave. Government servants may have taken leave to contest these local government elections. And then we have the strange case, or not so strange, of Mr. Mujibur Rahman, who gave up being a member of parliament to contest the local government elections and try and become the mayor of Colombo. And of course, Mr. H.M. Fauzi has now decided to go and take that place and sit in parliament, all 83 years old of him. But what about that now? What recourse is available to Mr. Mujibur Rahman now?
Well, you raised the two questions. I think the government official, those who contested, who take leave and contested, this will be a problem for them. But in the last election, I think it was in 2018 elections, the government issue a circular if election postponed without giving any date, then the government official can report the work again. So we need to make sure with the public administration ministry, but according to my memory, if the election commission is not giving any such a date for elections, then the candidate can return their work. The other questions about the mayor and Mr. Mujibur, I think if the parties really wanted to bring him back, then they can. But somebody has to then again resign from the parliament, or the same persons, or any other parliamentarian. But I don't think that it will take place during next month's period, because once you take the oath, nobody is willing to give up. No, that is the biggest problem in this country. The politicians.
Well, we have that. You're so absolutely right. We have that right from the top. Although, as Cardinal Malcolm Ranjit says, although 134 people, by the way, that's the same number of the bus that goes to Angoda and the mental hospital and so on, 134. But 134 people decided to appoint Ranil Wickremesinghe as the president. But Cardinal Malcolm Ranjit, he says that this is really only a temporary measure, and that if all things are equal, the president, the acting president, even though he is the president, should be calling for elections soon as possible.
Yeah, but the constitutionally, president can run his term, right? He still have two more years. I think legally there is no challenge. Morally, ethically, maybe the different view, but we can't challenge his term for next 2 years. He will be the president. If there is something in between, maybe the different situations, but otherwise, I don't think that he will go for elections, and he can't go even. Actually, he can go parliamentary elections, but according to the constitutions, he can't go early presidential elections. So he will remain as a leader. That's fine, but our problem is his bad practice. He don't care about the governance in this country. He don't care about the people's sovereignty. So that is the main problem.
Rohana Hettiarachchi, thank you very much for being on Newsline Zoom. We much appreciate it, and we greatly value the efforts of yourself and your organization to bring about the people's right to have their franchise and to exercise their franchise. Thank you very much. And it's now time for the primetime news from News First. Take care. Have a great evening as much as you can, of course. And as always, God bless you all.